this truly is about getting out of participation with the evil demonic realm, which is real, and getting into participation with Christ through the Holy Spirit.
Or even making it through the ice. So it's interesting you said that, because remember the phrase, make my joy complete. We looked at that in previous podcasts because Jesus said that quite a few times. And we kind of watched the evolution of the complete joy Jesus would have through his suffering and then through his resurrection and his ascension. And then John just drops a new phrase in here that's only used in John. It's used about 4 different times. And that's make my love complete. So he takes the same Jesus idea, what you were just describing, Zach, of what it looks like when our joy is made complete. That's when Christ is in us. Now he takes it another level in the idea of our love being made complete. And again, that only can happen through Christ. It's used in 1 John 2:5, 4:12, and 4:17. It's the only time the phrase is used in the New Testament. John used it in this book, in this letter. And so I thought it was interesting because you do go back and look like Deuteronomy 6, Leviticus 19, Matthew 22, even James mentions the royal law, this idea that you love God and love your neighbor. And that's why he says it's not new. I mean, the idea has been here all along, but what is new? The new is that Jesus came and Jesus in his Spirit. And now we're a part of that. And that's why he puts it in the next context about back to light and dark, Jace. He says, anyone who claims to be in the light but hates his brother, he's still in darkness. In other words, how do you exhibit the love of Christ if you're living a life that's still in darkness? It would be like, Zach, when you were describing about looking at it from a Western perspective of the in and out, it would be like getting married. And unfortunately, people do this. And then every day, the status of your marriage is decided by how well things went, or what your wife or your husband did do or didn't do for you. And at the end of every day, you would have to redecide whether you should stay married or not. Now, that sounds like hell. That doesn't sound like heaven at all. And yet that's what a lot of marriages are. Why? Because they haven't come together in the union that was designed by God.
It's all about the union.
Yeah, and then over years, it gets better, not worse.
Well, one thing to think about that's just kind of a scary thing, but it's hit me when I was in New York at this conference, and John Tyson started off the entire conference with kind of a shocking sermon. I mean, I was not expecting him to say what he said. I think I had, if you listen to someone enough, you feel like I know what they're going to say. I kind of know their material. And I was expecting a lot more of a conversation on spiritual formation and the practices and, renewal, revival. I mean, this is a lot of what he's written about, talked about. And I would say, I mean, Jace, you've listened to John quite a bit. I mean, I had him on the Not Yet Now podcast. I want to have him on this podcast to probably talk about this, actually.
Yeah, that was my idea 2 years ago, and you hijacked it. Go ahead.
Still waiting.
To be fair, I sent an invitation, and the time slot he had, we would have had to we couldn't make it work on Unashamed, but I wanted to have him on.
Time slot issue.
Yeah, time slot issue. But I did want to have him on to talk about this because he said that he has sat in a lot of deep theological study, which we do too. I love all that. But he said, there's one area, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but there's one area that he has become increasingly aware of in the last year, which is spiritual warfare. And when he began to talk about this, the darkness that it really is so pervasive over our land, that there is a demonic realm of principalities. And this is, again, this is in the scriptures, right? There's principalities that rule, that have actually real power, they don't have our best interest at heart. There's principalities over things like lust and pornography and just the political outrage culture and like all the anxiety that's gripped our land, gripped our nation, gripped our young people. And his point was, we need to start contending and take serious what is happening in the spiritual realm. And I look, one of the scariest books I read was the one that Joe Beam wrote. How many years ago was that, Al?
Probably 20 plus years ago.
20 years ago. But, he had come out of he had come out of extreme darkness.
Yeah.
And almost lost his soul.
Yeah.
And when he came out of that.
And did lose his family for a while and then.
Lost his family. Yeah. Our fight is not against flesh and blood. And we have to remember that as we're moving into this conversation of what we're talking about right now. This is not about our theological, understandings and our great philosophical inquiries. This truly is about getting out of participation with the evil demonic realm, which is real, and getting into participation with Christ through the Holy Spirit. I mean, that's the contrast, and the stakes are extremely high, and that's the only way we're going to find real illumination. And I think this idea of the spiritual realm, like, we have done a disservice by not focusing on this, because it's a real active force and power that's coming against the sons and daughters of God. But at the same time, we also have one who is greater in us, right? The Holy Spirit. And so the call here is to yield back to the Spirit. But when you think about the idea of what's happening, when you mentioned that, like, where does sin originate? That is a key point. It does not originate with God. And any theology that would lead you to believe that, that's just not true. It's not in the sin is our problem. God does not sin. It is impossible for God to sin. It is impossible for God to lie. Sin does not come from the Father, but from the world. And the world, here's the contrast, is passing away along with its desires. So when you think about how do you know if what you're being sold is a lie, and it's from the devil, and it's demonic, and it is part of witchcraft, and it is something that is meant to destroy you and kill you and evaporate your soul and rip the life out of you. How do you know? Look at the fruit. Look at is the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Is that what it's yielding? Or is it yielding something that you got to keep taking more of it and more of it and more of it to stay afloat? I can take you right now to downtown Asheville, where I live, and it's not just in Asheville. Our country is in an epidemic of drug addiction right now. Any major city in the U.S., I don't remember this when I was a kid growing up. I don't remember driving through Atlanta or Charlotte or Asheville or any city and just seeing encampments of people who are addicted to fentanyl and all these tranquilizers, and just the posture of these people. When you see them, they're like on the side of the street, needles everywhere. You think, man, what is this?
And Zach, I just was in St. Louis, and at every red light that I would stop at, there was a person there that obviously was on drugs. You just tell from where they were staggering around, walking, trying to get money to buy more drugs. And look, it never got above 15 degrees. These people were in 15-degree to 5-degree temperatures with a foot of snow on the ground at every red light.
So the question is
panhandling for money to get some drugs.
Yeah,
I mean,
but how do you get to think about this? How do you get to that point? Because I'm walking around New York City. It's literally 2 degrees, and there's a guy on the concrete. He's covered up in a quilt, like a blanket. It's like 2 degrees outside, and this guy's out of his mind. He was trying to stay warm as he could, but he was addicted to drugs. And I'm looking at this young man. And man, I just felt this compassion on this guy. Has gone down this road, and what he has done is he has chased the desire that is fleeting. It's the one right here. Listen, the world is passing away along with its desires. Those desires are waning, and you got to keep amping that thing up. You got to keep. This guy, he didn't start on the streets of New York City living under a blanket in 2-degree weather. This guy started as an 8-year-old kid in somebody's home, getting exposed to something that he abuse, trauma, pornography, whatever it was, and that turned into maybe partying with his friends a little bit. Maybe he got drunk for the first time. Someone said, "Hey, you ever smoke weed?" And then this just keeps on and on. And then you fast forward 10 years. Now he's 18 years old, and he's literally living under a blanket in New York City, completely out of his mind. Why? Because he kept having to amp up the game to keep up with a desire that was fleeting. That is not the Spirit. That is not the Holy Spirit. That is a death work that is demonic, and it is rooted in witchcraft. And we have to take this serious. And I think the people of God have to come up underneath the rule and the reign of Christ. And we got to be calling on a higher power. Thankfully, we do have one that is a higher power. And that desire won't fleet over time. That desire will actually increase over time as we submit to the Spirit.